Hey, and welcome to part 5 of ProPresenter training. Today we're talking about the stage display. Now, stage display it can be a little bit daunting starting out, but once you get into it, you realize that there isn't too much to it once you understand how it works, because it can be a little bit different, a little bit counterintuitive than how you might think, but I think it will make sense once we explain it. So, what is the stage display? Stage display is another output out of ProPresenter, out of your computer, aside from the one that goes to your projector. It is optional. You don't have to have it. It just helps your band. It helps your worship team. It helps your pastor with notes and lyrics and stage display notes and clocks and timers and all kind of things like that. So normally bands will have lyrics on it. Your pastor will have notes on it and things like that. So as I mentioned, it's another display, another physical display coming out of your computer. This is the iMac display right here, and then this one is the projector out, and then this one is the stage display. So you'll need two physical video out of your computer for this. The way we see what is on the stage display right now, if you don't have another monitor next to you like we do, you can hover over your preview window and hit toggle output stage display preview. And so that's what is on our stage display right now. It's just a clock. Alternatively, you can hit Command 3, number 3. Works on number pad and your main number bar up top, it looks like. And you can also hit Command 2 to turn the output on or off. I don't recommend doing this per se because it will show whatever your desktop background is on this display, but it's there if you would like to use it. But so if you don't have a monitor other than the Confidence monitor say next to you and you can't see what's on it, you can Command 3 and that will change it to here. So right now we just have a clock on it, which it's nice, it's helpful, but it can do so much more than that. So how do we change that? We can go to Window and Configure Stage Display right here, or we can hit Command 4 right next to 3. So here we have our current template. We have worship lyrics right here, and all of these are different layouts for the stage display. So let's create a new template here. Let's hit the plus button, and let's name it New Template. And let's say we only want the current slide on our template. So let's uncheck all of these. I actually want to check certain current slide. Let's uncheck everything else here. And we can uncheck show borders and labels to show borders and labels if we don't want them. Generally, you don't want to use these because it just makes things look kind of cluttered and messy, so we'll uncheck that. And if you'll notice, there's nothing outputting to the stage display because we just have a black box here. But if we hit Twinkle Twinkle Little Star right here, here we have Twinkle Twinkle Little Star out here. And something to note is this isn't a perfect representation of what is actually outputting. Here you can see we have star on the bottom line here, but not here. It's just a pretty close representation of it. But if you need to see exactly what it's outputting, we can hit this right here. Now we can resize this box to any size that we want it to be. So we want it to cover the entire page right here. So if we have a really big screen full of lyrics, it'll go all the way down to the bottom here. But another cool thing you can do is if we resize this to where it takes up about half the screen, go to our settings and next slide. So here we have next slide. And let's make that about the same size. And let's hit this slide right here. Actually, let's do this one. So here we have Twinkle Twinkle Little Star is showing the current slide right here. And it's also looking at whatever the next slide is, which is slide number 2 right here. And it will put that in this next slide box. Now we can flip the orders of this if we want to. I don't know why you would want to, but for the sake of demonstration, we can do that and flip the order of them here. It's just whatever position that you have the box in right here. So here we have our current slide and next slide set up here, but we can see the text is a little bit small. So what we can do is go back to settings and change the size to, let's try 120, which will double that size, and let's do 120 here as well. We can see that is a lot better for people on stage staring at a TV down below them. Won't strain their eyes. Another cool thing we can do is change the color of the current slide or next slide. So let's make this lemon yellow here, so they can see that the yellow is what's up right now and the white is what's coming up next. And again, it's getting these from our current slide is checked right here. It's labeled current slide, and that will show whatever is on screen right now will be on your stage display up here. And it will take whatever your current slide is, it will look at the next slide, and it will put that as the next slide down here. Something to note is if you have a slide disabled, it will skip that for next slide. So we have these two slides disabled and then a blank slide here. If we click this slide, it's showing nothing on this one slide here. Let's do I Wonder What You Are. So if we do Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, now it's thinking our next slide is the How I Wonder What You Are instead of this repeated one here, because it is disabled. So if we enable it and click this slide again, it'll think, okay, this is the next slide, and it will do it that way. So moving on, we have current slide notes. Let's take a look at that. And let's do the same thing here. Let's make it 120 size. And this is different from the current slide in that you can have a current slide active, but your notes section can have nothing in it. And this is useful for if you want to help somebody out who, say, is doing announcements on stage and you want to show them notes but not show everyone who's looking at the screens those notes as well. So if we edit slide and we go to our second tab here, we have stage display notes. Let's do announcements, next class, no service tomorrow, and VBS next week. Just make some up. So here we have those entered in on this slide. If we go to table view, you can see them here, but you can't see them in grid view. So we click this slide right here, and now we have these announcements here, but here we still have the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And if we want, actually you have to go into edit slide. If we want, we can delete everything off this slide, have it a blank slide, nothing on it, click that slide. So nothing is outputting to our display here, but we still have these notes on our stage display. Moving on from that, that's a really cool feature. We have next slide notes, which works the same way that current slide notes and next slide works, just kind of combined. It'll show the notes on the slide afterwards. We have chord charts, which I personally haven't used. I think it somehow links with Planning Center, or it may be in here. Yes, you can add a chord chart here for your musicians. We don't use that too much. We can add a clock, and that will show the real time. That will show whatever time you have on your computer. So it's 3:44 right here on my local system time. Let's say we have message timer here. We check that, it's set to 0 right now. But if we go to view and then clocks and timers, here's our timer window right here. We have a 32-minute message timer, so let's reset that and let's start it. So here's our 32 minutes counting down right now, and we can see it counting down on our stage display output as well. So there's that. You cannot change the color on these as far as I know. It will resize to whatever size you have your box set to. And yeah, so here we have the clock, which is the system time, and the message timer. We can also do as many timers as we want. We have a countdown too, so if you had like 2 countdowns where your pastor was like, hey, give me a 10-minute countdown to be done with this section of my message, and then a 32-minute for my entire message, you could do that. You also have a video countdown, which is pretty neat. We don't play videos on this current computer, but if you did, say you had a video playing over here and you had 1 minute left, it would count down with the remaining time in that video. Neat feature. You can change the colors of these as well. Let's make them green just for fun. And you can change your clock color as well. So here we have green and purple. And here is where our remove second zeros comes in handy. So we have a show hour zeros. Let's see, show all zeros. Here's our hour zeros. And then if we remove hour zeros, it will show just the 30 minutes. Or remove minute zeros or second. It's not going to do anything for that right now. But when we count down to 09, it'll just show the 9 instead of the 09, I believe. So there's that. Another neat thing is the message. So here's that box, and let's do this here. And let's scale that up a bit. Let's try 120 as usual. If we go to view and then stage display control, this is where we can show a message. So let's say you have somebody doing announcements and they're going way too long, as all announcements do. Let's say time to wrap up, and we can send message. And it will say, okay, time to wrap up. And at the same time, nothing's showing on your main window unless you want it to. And our time to wrap up is on our stage display output. And another neat thing with that is you can use flash color. So if we clear this and hide it, time to wrap up, we send message. Watch what happens over here. It will flash green for us to alert the person on stage, because if you just have text pop up here, it may not be obvious enough that there's something there if they're distracted with speaking. So that will just alert them that something showed up. We won't use that here because it's a little bit too distracting, but you can if you want to. So that about covers a single template, but as far as multiple template goes, so you don't have to constantly be going back and forth between manually editing these. Just like how we have text templates, we have stage display templates. So I have a worship lyrics here with the time, the current slide, and the next slide. And we have a message, which only shows the next slide, as well as a message timer and clock and stage display notes and so on. So you can really set up the templates the way you want and just customize it to whatever workflow works best for you. I recommend having probably 3 or 4 different ones. Definitely have one with stage display message, just in case something happens. You don't have to create that on the fly, even though we don't use it a huge amount. I'd recommend having something with current slide and worship lyrics and so on, but you can set it up however works best for you. Just create a new template and edit that one, and create a new template and edit that one to how you want it. If you create one too many, you can select that and delete, just like our groups and labels. And that's our template management. Now on the fly, you pretty much never have to go to configure stage display during a service, because ideally we'll have all of that set up ahead of time and we won't have to do it on the fly. But the way we change our template is we go to Window, Stage Display, and then here's all of our templates right here that we created in our template editor over here. So say we're in a song, we're on Glory to Glory, and that looks right, but say it was on, say, Message, and it only showed the next slide, we would go to Window, Stage Display, and then change our template over here. Easy shortcut for that is we can right-click on a slide, we can add Cue, Stage Display Layout, and then make this whatever one we want it to be. So let's do Current Slide, and let's do Worship Lyrics here. So what this little icon here means is that there's some kind of cue for changing the stage display on this slide. Now, since we added the cue on this slide, what happens is when we click it, it changes the template for us. So we don't have to Window, Stage Display, and go up here. So ideally, you'll never have to go to this menu here. This is only if you need to manually do it. But the much easier way to do it is to add a cue this way to change the display based on the slide that you're on. And you can do that on every slide if you wanted to, but generally I'll do it on the first two to make that the worship lyrics slide here. So when your song person hits this first slide, it will change it to the worship lyrics template no matter what it's on. Let's change it to current slide here. So right now we're on current slide, click this slide, it'll change it to worship lyrics here. So really useful, makes a lot of sense. Can be a little bit intimidating at first, but once you get the hang of it, it makes a lot of sense.